time, I would like to kick off the Finance Committee meeting for Thursday, March the 17th at 5:30 p.m., and I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Westcott.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome to everyone. We have two items on our agenda this evening. Item number one is consideration of a resolution that would authorize a memorandum of understanding between the City of Russellville and the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission for the installation of an ADA-accessible fishing dock at Pleasant View Park. It has been recommended that we table item number one since we, as of right now, do not have a copy of that memorandum of understanding. And so I move to table item number one to our next finance meeting. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Tripp. Any discussion?
What's the why are we having to do it? We don't have the paper. Is there an emergency?
They're still working on the paperwork for the memorandum of understanding. We don't have that in front of us this time.
Okay. All those in favor of tabling item number one, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Item number two is discussion of removal of a structure at 932 West 3rd Street submitted by our city attorney.
Yes, this is a structure that was declared dilapidated by this council at least 2 years ago, if not longer. And there was some delay because the city wanted to purchase this, and the owner at that time, I guess, hinted maybe he would. Well, that never happened. That transaction never happened, and instead he has sold to another party. My office did bids on this and did not get a bid to remove it, and so I'm here to see if council's directive is to rebid it, or since it will be under, in all likelihood, be under $35,000, that just to go ahead, since there was no bids, to find an interested party to remove it and just hire that person or that company.
Can I ask a question? Kenneth, does the city have the capability to raise structures? Do we have the equipment and things to do that? It's a house. It's a frame home. A frame home, probably 1,200 square foot approximately.
Yeah, I think we're capable. We have a large threshold. We could do it with that, I would assume, correct? Do you know more about the equipment?
Sure you can.
Yes, I believe we could do that.
So that might be an option if we decided, if we went out for quotes and didn't get the quote we wanted, the city might be able to do that and save the taxpayer some money.
Yes, sir. The only issue we would have, we'd have to find what we need to dispose of it. That would be our only issue, so.
We would be required to dispose of that at the landfill. Yeah.
My follow-up question is, can you itemize the cost that the city will incur so that a lien can be placed on the property if the owner does not pay?
We could keep up with our man hours, and we could, I guess, give them a quick charge.
I'll give you some rates.
We would have to do on the back of reverse street.
I mean, as long as it can be itemized, otherwise we won't be able to recoup the cost or the loss of doing it. You can do that. Let's put it this way, are you feel comfortable enough in saying that you'll sign an affidavit, which is also required for the lien?
Yes, yes, we would.
Okay,
We'll keep up with every second. We'll keep
It still belongs to the landlord.
all right.
Okay.
So, Mr. Smith, can you have some paperwork ready for us to move forward with this?
All I was here
Sorry,
was to either go back to solicitation of bids, which produced none the last time, or to try and find someone directly, just got my office calling to see who we could find anybody that was interested in their price.
Okay.
Mr. Westcott, what I might suggest is that we go out for quotes, since this is under $35,000, doesn't have to be bid. evaluate the quotes in relation to what maybe public work would cost Public Works to do this. And if there's a large delta in cost, then we can do it internally. If it's, you know, the cost is pretty close to what it would cost us to do it, then we can go ahead
Okay.
and pick that quote and go ahead and move forward, get the appropriation to do this job and go forward.
What about the present owner?
I'm sorry?
I mean, what about the present owner? I mean, someone else owns it now? It's
Yes.
been sold?
That's right, but that property's been condemned, so she doesn't really have much, many options here. Does that sound reasonable
Okay.
to you?
We have already been authorized to cause that building to disappear, is that right?
That was, yes, that was passed, like I said, at least 2 years ago, if not further. We've
So-
already, that determination's already been made by this council.
Okay.
It just comes down to, said there was no interest in the bids, and so rather than incur another cost of running an advertisement in the newspaper, whether just, since it's gonna be below mandatory bidding, just to allow something else to happen and.
Sure.
And us just
So,
calling
but-
and soliciting interest in it by phone.
But we've been authorized to make it disappear. We've been authorized to put it out for bid. So is there anything else that the mayor's office needs from us to do what you have in mind?
No, sir, the only thing that we would need is if we did find a quote that was reasonable, we would need to come back for an appropriation.
Okay. Is there anything else for the good of the Finance Committee? Any other comments on item number 2? Hearing none, Mayor, I yield the floor back to you. Oh, I err. Mr. Tripp.
Just a quick question. Number one, a couple months ago, we had something before us kind of talked about regarding copiers and printers for the city, and then that was pulled back and something. So is that coming back to us, or where are we at on that? Because it was expiring in like in April or May. Okay, so we still got some time.
But, yeah, if we could choose to do them one at a time, we wouldn't have to go and do 15 of them at the same time.
Okay, all right, I just knew it'd been a month or two since we talked about that, so that's why. Secondly, with the news article I read about the Intermodal Authority changing gears or directions on that project, it reminded me that we as a city own 200 and something acres down there, and I just kind of wanted to see if that impacts our land any, or if we just still, is that still going to be part of that overall effort to job creation or development ideas? And also, years ago, there were some studies and something else done regarding some artifacts, whatever, discovered on that property. And I just wanted to make sure that we as a city, since we own that, whether we had it done or an entity on our behalf had it done, that we had a copy of all that with our paperwork, with our deed, whatever, so that all that, that doesn't ever have to be done again necessarily. We have copies of what was previously done regarding those artifacts.
Mr. Smith, are you aware of the studies that were done on that land down here?
Somewhat. There was an issue with the original survey or surveying company that did that, and there was a lawsuit that was settled over their failure to spot one artifact that was causing trouble on the land. I believe, and I think I have that for that particular one, as for in the case file. As for others, I believe, to my knowledge, there's others there, but I don't think I have them there, and or I don't have the document for it. However, they could be acquired by anybody else that's administering the land on our behalf, or the Archaeological Survey should have one there as well. They have a map that they keep all those on.
Yeah.
Refresh, rehash all that to make sure we have everything on the file on that.
Yeah, let me address a couple issues, Mr. Tripp. You're right, the Intermodal Authority did decide that it was cost prohibitive to build a slackwater harbor for our community. The slackwater harbor the property that the Slackwater Harbor would have existed does not belong to the city, it belongs to a citizen in our community. And we had worked with them to get rights to purchase, which obviously at this point will not exercise. The land that you refer to, 200, is approximately 295 acres in that area, is currently, most of it's being farmed, and there's pine trees on some. The problem at this point is that that land is in a flood zone. And to market that land as an industrial site development is now an impossible. If we were to spend millions of dollars to build the levee system up to account for the flood that we saw in 2019, then the property might be marketable. But I have been told by some professionals within the last year that even if you build that levee system and get this property so-called out of the flood path or floodplain, that the insurability for major industry would be almost impossible for that land. So, having said that, one of the things that we will be looking at is potentially acquiring new land for out of the floodplain for an industrial park for our community. That's going to take time. It's going to take money. But that's where we stand at this time. So I see nothing happening with that land in the near future for the reasons I just espoused.
Should we go ahead and get these studies and surveys together that's done on our behalf of our property together while it's fresh in our mind, if we don't already have them?
I think, well, based on what Mr. Smith just said, that the land, that he does have some of those studies. The other studies would be available, as I understand it, if we were to sell the property or use the property, that we would have to do that research at that time, right?
We would, the archaeological stuff, I think there's stuff out there, maybe the Alliance may have something. And then as for the mapping for that property, the State Archaeological Survey will have a map that will also show stuff on there. As for the other stuff like floodplain or whatever, I mean, there's gonna be a designation of what is and isn't on there in the floodplain area. And then I think that's all you would need.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we need to spend taxpayer money at this time going through. Yeah, well, if there's studies that have been done, we should have record of them, agreed. Yeah.
Unless we're gonna keep that land forever and never do anything with it other than just let it out farm it, then it doesn't matter. If there's any chance we're ever gonna do anything with it, we need those documents before we're too far along.
And did we never receive copies of those documents once that study was completed?
For archaeological stuff?
Yes.
Well, we didn't, it came into focus because of one site on the 260-something acres that the city owns. And that eventually went to litigation and was settled about 10 to 12 years ago. As for any other sites, I was not aware. We didn't get into that, or at least in my presence. I believe the Alliance at the time took on a survey to see if there was additional stuff on that land, but I didn't, once the case was over, I didn't have any, it was not the city did not choose to be involved at that time. They let the Alliance at that time kind of be the superintendent of the land, and I believe, to my knowledge, but I don't have any paper proof, but I believe they went to see if there was any other surprises on that land as well as the intermodal land.
So if there were any studies done, then the Alliance, or at least the Intermodal Board, probably should have those.
I think they should, yes. As best as again,
And,
once the city was done with this particular thing, the Alliance was kind of at that time, they were pretty much the superintendent over any type of land the city owned for industrial purposes. And I believe they were going in that direction, but I have no documents to show they went in that direction. But I believe for time with the litigation, that's where they were going to do once the litigation wrapped up.
Sure. Okay. I don't have any issues going to the intermodal board of the alliance and asking for that paperwork if it's been done. We're the property owners, we should have that property.
Anything like that, as we've seen, stuff that may be hard to find.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, the floor is yours.
Okay. Anything else? All right, this time we will adjourn the Finance Committee meeting, and we will reassemble at 6 PM for the council meeting.